Hello, everyone. My name is Bonnie Lai. I'm a 2004 grad currently serving on the UNH Alumni Association Board of Directors. The UNH Alumni Association serves as the bedrock of our UNH alumni community, working to connect alumni to each other and to UNH. Thank you for supporting UNH with your time today. We encourage you to take advantage of your Wildcat benefits by visiting the UNH Alumni Relations website at unh.edu/alumni. Today's webinars, Own Your Worth, is another episode in the webinar series presented by UNH Alumni Relations. Ashley Paré is the CEO and founder of Own Your Worth, an organization bridging the gap between employees and employers. As a leadership and negotiation coach, Ashley gives women the tools to own their worth and ask for what they want without fear of negative consequences. Ashley leverages over a decade of global human resource experience, is a TEDx speaker, and has been featured in the New York Times, Glamour, CNN Money, Good Morning America, and more. Ashley will answer questions at the end of the webinar, so please note the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where you can submit your questions throughout the program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you, Bonnie, for the beautiful introduction. I'm excited to be here, and I can't believe I finally get to be hosted by my alma mater, UNH. So hello to my fellow Wildcats and anyone else that might be joining, since UNH has been gracious enough to offer this session to everybody. So I'm really excited to be with you. Again, my name is Ashley Paré, and I'm the founder and CEO of Own Your Worth. And today we are going to leverage your time, since you are here live, to help you feel comfortable and confident owning your worth and negotiating too. So you can be recognized, rewarded, and paid very well for your contributions at work. So I would love to know, since we're going to be using the chat feature today, where you're dialing in from. So feel free to pop in the chat where you're calling in from. I am in Boston, Massachusetts, and we will be using the chat feature for you and I to connect throughout my session today. And then at the end, we will have a formal Q&A. So feel free to post questions in the Q&A boxes and answer my questions throughout in the chat. So I see a lot of, Phoenix, yes, nice. Arizona, Concord, Boston, hello, Durham, Seacoast, Virginia, I love it. So let's dive in. Keene, New Hampshire. I love all of these folks in and around the New Hampshire snowy space right now. So thank you for joining. Hello, Cape Cod. I had my dream job. I remember interviewing at this organization and hitting the elevator button up to the 52nd floor of this beautiful Manhattan high-rise. And I walked into what soon would be my new office, and I thought, I have finally made it. I have worked so hard, and I finally reached the top. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be accepting this HR partner job to support an international sales organization. Hello, everybody. So excited to see you here. Now, this was me in New York City, where I lived and worked for a while, when I had my dream job in human resources. And I want to take you back just for a moment, because it's really important, I think, to take the time to pause and connect all the dots of your life, because not only do your choices matter, so do your decisions and your conversations. And so I worked, when I was at UNH, in the Alumni Relations office as a student. And that was one of my first corporate, quote unquote, real jobs. And it was a fantastic experience. And I made a connection there. At the time, this person was maybe a director or somebody running the UNH Alumni Relations team. And when I was graduating and looking for a job in Boston to pay my student loans, to be able to pay my own rent, I reached out to this person and said, hey, I need a job. What do I do? And he invited me to interview at the company he was then working for. And so I was thinking about this before our session today to be like, wow, my whole career, everything started when I was in college. I mean, really before that, but the people that I met, the conversations, and that very first ask of, hey, I need help to find a job. Can you support me? Led me to landing my first job in Boston and my very first negotiation experience. So because I asked my connection for help, I got my job. And so my very first negotiation experience was with the head of HR of this company. And I remember they offered me $15 an hour for this position. And I wanted $16 an hour because I had a college degree now. And so I asked for $16 and the head of HR met me in the middle and she offered me $15.50. And so that was my first HR negotiation experience and it taught me well. And we're going to dive into my tips and tools today because not only did I have my dream job in HR, I now have a dream job beyond my wildest original dreams that from college, running my own business. I allowed myself to realize that what I had been chasing in my dream job really wasn't what lit me up at all. And I wasn't owning my worth. I had the HR insider knowledge to know what people were being paid very early on in my career because I ran payroll, I had salary access, I was interviewing people, I was coaching managers, and yet it became harder and harder for me to advocate for my worth the further up the corporate ladder I went. Because early on in my career, I was fearless. I had bills to pay and I negotiated because I didn't know any better. And even being in human resources with all of that insider knowledge, I still struggled to feel like I was enough, to self-advocate with confidence, and to not be afraid of hearing no. And so that's how we're going to spend our time together today, folks. So thank you again for joining me. And this is really your session to get more comfortable and confident, not only feeling worthy and deserving of whatever it is you want, but also some tools, some real takeaways that you can leverage and put into practice right now in your career, because these are hard conversations. I'm not going to lie. These are hard conversations because we're not learning. I mean, I think universities are coming on board now with having some negotiation courses and programs. That's something to talk about. But we don't have these skills in childhood. Our gender impacts the way that we decide and feel comfortable talking about ourselves, and our ethnicity, our background, our income, all of these factors. So before we dive in anymore, I want to hear from you. I have a quick poll, Megan, if you want to run it, because I would love to know, number one, what role are you currently in? And I realize we didn't put in here whether or not you're a student, but if you are working, if you're a student, you can just put it in the chat. But if you're currently working either in an internship or a full-time job, please answer the question here, what your current role is. And if you are a student, just pop student in the chat. Sorry, I forgot to include that. And Megan, will you be able to? Okay, I see a student, great. So students, I got you, because negotiating your first role after school is so critical to your career. And I'll tell you why in a second. All right, so 62% are individual contributors. We got a couple business owners. Hello. And of course, the unsung heroes of the workforce, the managers and leaders who are playing both the leadership management role, who have to advocate for their teams, and learning how to advocate and negotiate for yourself. So great. My last question for you in the poll is, what are you here to learn how to negotiate? A raise, a promotion, benefits, work from home if your company isn't allowing that, something other than straight cash. And again, if you are negotiating your very first job offer, why don't you answer this question as a raise? Because a raise and negotiating a new job, right, is a bit different than negotiating a promotion when you're internal. I'll be right back. All right, Megan, what do we have here? Ooh, okay, so very close, very close. So, all right, we're going to talk about both, and I'll make sure I have time to answer your specific questions in the Q&A. So let's dive into owning your worth. So if you don't own your worth, there is truly a real cost. And I'm going to talk about detangling your worth in the marketplace from your inherent worthiness as a human being. But what made it harder for me to self-advocate and negotiate in my career, even though logically I knew how, because I was doing this from the employer standpoint all the time, the cost to me was that I was afraid of hearing no. I was afraid of being rejected, and it cost me real money when I didn't ask, or right, we don't know unless we ask, right? The answer is always no if we don't ask. And so there's money left on the table, and that of course breeds resentment and even overwhelm for yourself, your career, your family. Your boss can usually tell when you're not really into it. So there's a true cost of not self-advocating. And I want you to remember that, because for those of you who are going to be advocating for your very first job in the workforce, even if you feel like you don't have tons of experience, I'm going to help you articulate what you do bring to the table in a minute. But this is the actual dollar amount that negotiating even a $5,000 increase at the beginning of your career equates to, right? So $5,000 more in your paycheck equates to, right, getting a salary of $50,000 equates to more than $600,000 over the course of your career. Now that is significant in terms of what you can do for your family, what you can do for your retirement, what you can do to pay down your student loans, right? So self-advocating from a place of worthiness, knowing that you make an impact, that your contribution matters, and that you're also supporting a business, really does pay off in dividends. So that's the motivation for you, to remember that any amount, right, is going to compound in terms of interest and additional money in your career. So how do you own your career, right? These are my best tips for you that we're going to dive into today, because if you're not clear on what you want, no one else is going to be able to help you get that. If you are not at least willing to be a little more comfortable feeling uncomfortable, then you're going to feel stuck in your career, right? Even me as a leadership coach, a negotiation advocate, somebody who helps my clients negotiate raises, promotions, start their own businesses, right? I'm negotiating constantly with vendors, with clients, with everyone, and it still brings up emotion. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. So I've just learned to be a lot more comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what I want to support you in today. And also, to own your career, you have to be ready and willing to articulate your value. Now, this is a big one because, again, depending on how you self-identify, your gender, your upbringing and background, you may have been taught that tooting your own horn makes you look boastful or arrogant. Right. And entering into the workforce, there's a whole new game to play almost in terms of how we show up and how we're recognized. So I want to know from you, what fear has held you back? When I was looking at really negotiating a big raise when I had my dream job, what really held me back was, again, that fear that my boss would say no. I think in my gut, I knew the answer was going to be no. And I didn't ask for a long time. And that built up resentment, that built up self-doubt. So I want to hear from you. What challenge or fear has held you back from preparing to advocate, from actually making the ask? Put it in the chat, because I want you to give yourself space to voice your fear, because that's how we reduce their power over us. And I want you to see that you are not alone. That these are the hardest conversations you will have in your career, but they are going to be the most rewarding and most information filled. Yes. So here we go. The fear of rejection is a big one. Other people's feelings, defensiveness. Yeah. What are other people going to think of me? How are they going to respond? Erin, the confrontation piece, people feeling like you don't deserve it. Yes. Or you don't earn it. Thinking less of you. How are people going to perceive you? Absolutely. Appearing to be a B and being labeled. Yeah. See, retaliation. Oh, that's a tough one. Being told no and losing confidence as a result. Yes. The job requirements are more than what I have. Okay. So this is coming down to, right, I'm hearing themes here. Either you're worried and concerned about the fear of, are you enough? Right. Which is that internal piece around owning your worth. Or there's that fear of, how am I going to be perceived? What are the potential negative consequences? Right. Fear of being annoying after having previously asked. Oh, that's a big one. How to make the ask appropriately, what leader wants to hear, timing. We're going to talk about timing today. Oh, this big one, Jenna, fear of asking for too much. Oh my goodness. So folks, if you, my chats are blowing up because there's so much fear around this. And so today, right, I'm going to give you the tools and the courage to cut through this fear and take action, even if it still feels uncomfortable, because I've been in your shoes and I want you to know that you can make these asks and that they are going to serve you. And that often, I would say like 97% of the time, our fears are way worse, right, than what actually happens. And to be honest, if your biggest fear does come true, that is the most powerful information that you can gather from having these conversations. Yeah, so I hear another one here, Robert, I hear a lot from my clients, which is, my job is good. It's good. I like the people, if I ask, am I going to risk what I already have? Not wanting to rock the boat. These are big ones, causing a rift. Oh my goodness. Yes. Afraid of coming across as emotional. Oh, well, you are not alone. And I have cried in my early asks, right? And this is where I recognized in my own life and career that this was more than just knowing when to set a meeting up with your boss. Right? Why was I getting emotional? When I was in human resources, when I was getting raises for other people, when I was setting compensation plans? Well, because money and our story and relationship around money does connect to, right, our sense of self-worth. Right? And those tears that I had when self-advocating, right, it really was all of this unfelt emotion coming out in the middle of my ask. And so earlier in my career, I didn't do the preparation work. I had the data, being able to see salaries, and I would sit down with my bosses and I'd say, look, I know I'm underpaid. I would really like to have some more, I would like to be paid more to equate to the contribution I'm making here at work, but they would come with tears. And so let's talk about owning your worth. So this emotional piece that most of you just shared, right? You have fears around. We have to begin this process before we ask, before we negotiate, before we sit down at the table. We have to untangle our self-worth and our feelings of worthiness from what our contribution is and what our value is in the marketplace. And so how do we do that? Well, we have to get out of our own way. We have to get out of our heads. We have to reduce those fears by talking about them and knowing that, hey, you're not alone. These are the hardest conversations, even for folks in HR, even for your managers and bosses, because everybody has a relationship with money. So what can you do to begin to untangle your self-worth from market worth? Number one, seek feedback. How many of you are having these conversations, no matter where you are in your career? How many of you are saying, hey, so-and-so, I'd love to get your feedback on my presentation, on my project, on my impact for this deliverable? How many of you are actively seeking feedback? Right. One of the activities I have my clients that I work with do is to go around to people that they trust and ask them, what are the top 3 adjectives that you think of when you think of me? You have to own your career. You have to understand what people think of you, because most of the time you're going to get amazing, amazing feedback, and your doubts are going to be squashed. So seeking feedback regularly helps you act on it, helps you grow, and it helps you realize that you are worth a great deal in your career, that you are giving value, that you're making a difference, that your team members would miss you if you weren't there. So actively seeking feedback is how you get the truth of what is your worth and value in the workforce versus you are already all inherently worthy. So seeking feedback from people who know you. Number 2 is market research. How do you do market research? Well, you ask folks, right? This is about getting more comfortable talking about money with everybody, with people we work with family, with friends, but start somewhere safe. But market research can be had on LinkedIn. You can go to payscale.com. You can go to salary.com. There are tons of resources now. Thank goodness that more and more pay is becoming transparent. But one of my hacks for you is to get on the phone with a recruiter. Talk to people in your industry, share your resume and say, hey, you know, dear recruiter, I'd love to know what you're seeing in the marketplace for a pay range for somebody like me with my background. You can also go to HR. You can build a relationship with your HR business partner, your HR director, and you can say, hey, dear HR, I would love to put in place a plan to grow my career this year, and I would love to know what is the salary range or the salary band for people with my role in our organization. We have to start talking about these topics at work because everybody gets a paycheck if you're employed, meaning this shouldn't happen in a black scary box. This should be out in the open and in the light. And another way to start owning your worth from the inside out, so that way the emotions are reduced when you make an ask, is to start owning your influence. Especially as women, we can be so quick to say, well, I didn't do X, Y, and Z, it was my team. But I'm going to take you through an exercise here shortly to help you really own and articulate your value, because you are making an impact, and it's up to you really to help other people see that, especially your boss, because bosses, this is a whole nother topic, right, have a lot on their plate. And so you can do your part to help your boss advocate for you by owning your influence. So remember that you are worthy, and that's the first step in preparing to negotiate. Number 2 is getting ready to self-advocate. So what is the language? What are the areas that you're making an impact in the business? Can you connect it to money, dollars? So I want you all to grab a pen and paper right now, or your phone, your notes in your phone. And I want you to think about, before you think about what you would say if you're asking for a raise or a promotion, I want you to think about what's in it for the business. Because negotiation is a conversation, right? That has at least 2 parties on either side. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about coming to this agreement, this place where it works for both of you, because this is a relationship that either one of you can end at any time. So knowing what is in it for the business will help you, again, ground your ask in data. So what if you quit your job today? If you just up and left, if you never showed up again, how would your absence affect your boss, your team, your peers, other students, your organization? So if you just stopped doing what you do today, how would that impact the business? So I want you to take a moment and write that down. And if you're already thinking, I don't know, put a question mark in the chat, because whenever I do these workshops in person, right, we could spend the whole session on just the fear. Everyone's raising their hand, everyone's shouting out fears. But when we start thinking about, what is the impact that I've made, it gets quiet. So if this is challenging for you, just put a question mark in the chat, and I'm going to take you one step further. So if it's difficult to answer or even think about, what would happen if you quit, right? What's the impact if you left? Because that's insight into where you add the most value. If that is hard, then here's another tool for you to be able to leverage, right? And see how you can have these conversations at work from a place of delivering facts, delivering solutions, delivering and showing that you're making an impact to the business, and this is why, based on your research, you want to be compensated for your contribution. So I'm going to read this out, and I encourage you to fill in the blanks for yourself, because this is actual language that you can bring to the table and say, hey, boss, I would love to talk to you about my career growth within our organization today. And I've pulled together a few examples of ways that I've made an impact lately. And I'm really hoping we can discuss my future and my contribution and my pay within our company. Because thanks to my ability to meet deadlines or secure new clients, right, I was able to change the performance system. I was able to change the process. I was able to achieve and meet our revenue goals, right, which has helped or benefited the company by reducing overhead, saving a paying client, right, earning the company money, thanks to my ability or strength to talk with anybody at any level or manage conflict, right? I was able to help my boss reduce their time, right, navigating the situation, which helped my boss do their job better, which helped their company, right, reach their goal. So everything you do, no matter what role you are in, it makes an impact. And it's really up to you to see how, just like I shared, that very first ask when I was leaving UNH to find my first job, that ask has literally snowballed to enable me to be here, right? I left my dream job and career in human resources to start my own business, but I had to go on that journey first. And so part of you articulating your value is saying, you know what? When I do all of these things in my role, here's how it trickles up. So what's in it for the business? And I know I'm throwing a lot of language and tips and tools that you might want to be able to use. So yes, we will have a recording available. UNH folks will confirm that for us. I also have a guide that I'll be sharing with you at the end, a free guide, and I also have a negotiation guide. So scripts are one of the most powerful ways that you can practice before you sit down with a boss to practice this language, because it's not what we've learned. And it's something that takes patience and, again, practice, because if there's any emotion when you sit down to practice this statement in front of the mirror, in front of your phone, in front of your dog, in front of a friend, then you might not be ready to sit down in front of your boss. Never ask your boss for a raise for the first time in front of them. Meaning, I want you to ask everybody else practice this language, ask for a raise, and when you feel ready, when you feel nervous but not emotional, you go and sit down with your boss. So I'm going to pause here for a minute to remind you to use the Q&A. I will be making sure we save enough time. And another piece of asking, so let me just, with this pause, before we get into timing your ask, I really want you to remember that, yes, you can negotiate for pay. Getting a fair salary, getting a competitive base and compensation package is very, very important. But negotiation and self-advocacy is really the tools that you need to continue growing your career forever. Because negotiating your first job out of school is super important, but if you didn't do that, you still have another chance. There's always another opportunity for you to find a yes for you in your career that's also a yes for the business, right? So when you think about sitting down, I don't recommend that you sit down with your boss, at the end of the year. I don't recommend that you ask for a raise or a promotion in the middle of your performance review, right? All of this starts right here, right now, because companies have their own cycle. And if you start asking for a raise or a promotion in the middle of your performance review, your boss's hands are going to be tied, meaning the whole company has one budget that they have to allocate to everybody at that time. So if you think you want to be promoted this year, if you think you want to look for a new job this year, if you think you want to ask for a raise to be paid fairly and competitively, now is the time to start doing your research, to start building your case and start preparing. Because you need to also give your HR team, your manager, your company time to show up for you. And making the ask is just the beginning. So part of self-advocating is knowing when the time is quote unquote right. So I want you to prepare and build a case first based in data and value. I want you to address your emotions first before you sit down with your boss. And I want you to not only set up a specific career development meeting to have this conversation, but I want you to prepare for yes, no, or maybe. Because as some of you wrote with your fears, some of you are worried that, okay, well, what if my boss responds negatively? What if I hear no? What if somebody thinks I'm greedy? So what if? Part of my work as a coach and speaker is to take you as a client all the way down that fear staircase to say, well, what if? Because I never did that for myself. And my big fear was my boss is going to tell me no, and it's going to hit me right in the face that I can no longer stay at this job. And so what I was really afraid of at the bottom of my fear staircase was not that my boss was going to say no or what my boss thought about me, but I was afraid of change. I was afraid of leaving my dream job because I didn't know what was next. But it happened. I asked for a raise. I was told no. And that was the beginning of the end of my HR career and the opportunity for me to get clear on what really was important to me and how I wanted to make an impact. And this is why I'm here today with you. So if I had been prepared for a no at that time, I could have asked my boss, well, can you give me more information? When else is a better time for us to talk about this? What else do you need from me to advocate on my behalf? Right? No is not the end. And this is why I coach my clients to go for no, because truly, I don't think you've actually entered into a full-on negotiation until somebody says no. Because when you hear no, that actually means there's a line. And that's where the negotiation can actually start. Because let's face it, if you've asked for more money and somebody says, yes, sure, I'll give you more money, what's the next immediate thought you're going to have after that? It's going to be like, oh, maybe I could have asked for more. Right? So in terms of negotiating, the same thing with me. I asked for $16 an hour and I got $15.50. Oh, well, maybe I should have asked for $17 an hour. So I could have got 16 and she would have met me higher. So these are all pieces for you to take away in terms of owning your worth, self-advocating with confidence, and realizing that no is not the end. If you actually get to that place of no, it's going to be a place for you to have the most information about you and your career and your boss and your organization. It's going to help you understand how you can be more curious. Right? The folks that I supported in my career when I was in HR were the folks who were brave enough to come and ask questions, right? I didn't know if somebody was struggling unless somebody came to me or somebody's manager came to me. So speaking up and self-advocating and using curiosity to understand your company, your process, why somebody is not able to give you another $5,000 in your new job offer, getting all of that information is super critical for your career. And of course, if you don't ask, the answer is no. So I go through all of these steps in more depth in my HR guide to negotiation, which I'm going to give you at the end of today's session a free link to. I'm going to give you a free link to a portion of my HR guide today. But going for no is super critical because there's so much power in making the ask. So I would love to hear from you in the chat if you've made an ask before and heard no. Give me a thumbs up or a 1. Yes, right? Yes in the chat. Have you negotiated and got to that point of no? A lot of yeses and no's. So my question for the people who haven't heard no in negotiation, is it because you haven't advocated or haven't asked or haven't negotiated for more? Or is it because you've heard yes, right? There's no really wrong way to negotiate. And I know that might sound wild, but my advice to you is just go ahead and do it. You learn every single time you do it. I am giving you some steps to prepare so that way you can reduce the emotional piece around negotiation and advocating for yourself. But every company is different. Every boss is different because everybody has their own relationship with self-advocacy and money. So go ahead and do it. There's so much power in giving yourself a voice and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to own my value. I know I'm making an impact here. And if you don't know, you go back to step 1. And it might be clunky. It might be scary, but you're going to practice. And for all of those who have heard no when you have asked, what did you learn? Right? Because for me, when I heard that big NO, I learned that this was no longer working for me anymore. This relationship between me and my employer, it didn't work. And I had to do the inner work to own my worth, to let go of the dream that I thought I wanted so badly, to make space to open up for where I am today. And still, I don't know where I'm going to be 5 years from now, but now I know that, yes, I am worthy. Yes, I should be paid fairly and competitively for my contribution. And if that isn't possible, that's okay. I'm going to be willing to walk away. And that's what I want for you too. To me, that is the definition of owning your worth. So you heard no, and they didn't see your value. Yes, you learned to value yourself enough to walk away. Yes, yes, yes. It's up to me to find yes. Absolutely. You learn where the boundary needs to be for you to look for another job. Absolutely. Right? If we don't ask and we just stay silent, that is when all of those yucky emotions that we are uncomfortable feeling come up. And it can be years before we really accept that, hey, this is no longer working for me. And look, I was in human resources. My job was to grow the businesses I worked for, to retain the talent I had. I am telling you that companies expect you to negotiate. We need to know what it will take to save you because you are valuable. It is so costly and timely to find great talent, and that's you. And especially if you're a manager, especially if you are doing the double work of not only growing your career, trying to be the best manager you can, and also advocating for your team. Yes, you love the suggestion, Denise, of meeting with HR and asking about the pay range. Of course. You know, if your company says no, okay, you can be curious and say, well, why aren't we sharing that information? Can you tell me more? Right, we are in an era right now. Since I left the workforce full-time in HR capacity 6 years ago now, right, we've had a global pandemic. There's so many things that have happened that we are finally waking up to the fact that people need to be seen and treated as, right, people, valuable people. And the workforce is changing now. So let's hold our employers accountable. Let's hold our lawmakers accountable to making sure that we can all be valued and have a family, to have work, to pay our bills, to retire someday. Yeah, and this isn't about blaming, right? The really cool thing about negotiation and going for no is that you can say no and that other person can say no, and that's okay. It's okay to say no because it's not the end. You can either ask, well, why? Or what if? Or what about? Right? But I want you to give permission to yourself to say, no, this doesn't work for me. Even though you said no, dear boss, it's a no for me too. You have that power. So here are a few things to support you in being able to go for no, since I know handling rejection is a big fear that most of us face. So perhaps your boss or somebody in HR, I was recently talking to somebody about how she had asked not for more money, but for more responsibility. She wanted to be trained to become a manager. She wanted to learn how to use this new online system. She asked several times and was being strung along, right? The boss said, oh, maybe later, right? I'd love to, but not right now. Ask again in a couple of months. Right now it's our busy season, right? So this is why making the ask and then following up on the ask is really important, because if you hear no, I really want you to ask, well, when else is a good time for us to talk about this? Right? Have this person say, okay, great. I'm hearing that you can't train me right now, but when? Right? The following up piece is not annoying. It means that you take yourself seriously, and it means you're great at business. When we have to get work done, don't we follow up with people? Don't we ping them and say, hey, just following up here, right? When are you going to get me X, Y, and Z? Because I have this coming up. So this is another way that if you're hearing from your employer, there's no money in the budget. I wish I could give you more money to bring you on board, but this is our best and final offer for your new job. Then ask them about the budget. How are budgets determined? What's the success of the company right now? Are they meeting their revenue goals? If there's no money in the budget, well, what does that mean for me in my career? Can we talk about this? No is not the end, because you either need to get more information or perhaps you need to walk away. And so you can help your boss also get the courage to continue having these conversations and advocate on your behalf if you just use curiosity. Right? No isn't the end. It's just an opportunity to be more curious and use coaching questions, the what's, the how's, the why's, all those W and H questions. And that is what makes negotiation a leadership skill that is going to serve you for the rest of your career, right? It is not taboo to talk about yourself or money. I'll say that again. It is not taboo to talk about yourself or money. It's actually critical, because I don't want you burned out, resentful, and overworked and underpaid. Your employer doesn't want that either. Your family doesn't want that. And we are all going to work, right, to earn, because right now our society is set up, maybe the metaverse and Bitcoin will change this, but right now we're set up, right, to have a cash-based, a currency-based society. So to recap, before we spend some time on Q&A here, right, it's really critical to own your worth from the inside out. And you know what? I want to ask you, sorry, I don't have a clock. Can I get another time check? I just want to make sure I have enough time here. I want to ask you folks to 12:45. Perfect. Thank you. What is the very first word that comes to mind? You can put this in the chat. What's the very first word that comes to mind for you when you hear the word money? When you hear money, what's the first word that comes to you? Ooh, I like fun. Yes. Fear, freedom, security, stress, survival, power. I like, ooh, vacation. Yes. Throttle of ambitions. I love it. Okay. Not a lot. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. So perhaps you've heard, right, of the scarcity mindset or the abundance mindset. A lot of the work that I do, have done my own healing journey and with my clients, is helping them transform their relationships with money, because money and worthiness are interconnected. Detangling your self-worth from your market worth connects back to money. And whether or not you had enough, quote unquote, growing up, whether or not you felt like you were in this scarcity mindset, or if your parents instilled in you to save, right? Or if you identified, right, money with power, money with freedom, money with options, right? All of these are true. Money's natural energy is to flow, to go in, to go out, to go up, to go down. And we have to be comfortable on that ride. But many of us attach to one or the other. If I don't have money, I'm not going to be secure. I'm not going to be safe. If I have enough money, I'll be powerful. So just think about that for a minute. We've attached everything to having money. Yeah, and it becomes this roller coaster. And that's where I was in my career. When I finally negotiated that big ask and heard no, I had to come to terms with the fact that I wanted money, because to me, it meant that was my freedom. That was the only way I was going to be independent woman in New York City, not having to rely on anyone. And if I didn't have that, right, I would be trapped. And that was my big, deep fear, which led me to be where I am now, to heal my connection to my worthiness, to know that I'm enough, and then to separate it from business, from choices, from options. So I really encourage you to do that inner work. The free guide that I'm going to share with you is going to touch upon that a little bit more. And I dive deeper into your relationship with money in my HR negotiation guide, which is on my site. And I really encourage you to practice self-advocating in a safe space before you sit down with your boss. And I want you to practice going for no. And this can be with a friend, right? Maybe you test it out with where you're going to meet somebody for dinner, right? How many of us don't actually tell people where we really want to eat or what type of food we really like because we're afraid they might think of us differently or hear no, right? So practice in a safe space before you put yourself out there. Yes, freedom and self-reliance, right? That is, we all want that, right? But at what cost to you? And so advocating for yourself, especially, I will say this before we pause for questions. You have the most leverage you'll ever have in a negotiation before you say yes to accepting that new job. Because from an HR and employer standpoint, when they've made you that offer, they want you. They've invested in you. They believe you can do that job. And they want to know what it will take to get you to say yes to come on board with them. Recruiters want to scratch that open headcount off the list and check. So please leverage that leverage. Tell them what you need. Tell them what you want. Tell them how much you want to be paid. Give direct numbers and figures so that way the company can tell you yes or no. They can meet you where you need to be because they want you to get on board. So you've got to get more comfortable talking about money, folks, and tell people I'm looking for $120,000 to $140,000 for this role. Is that within your budget? Or I'm looking for $50,000 to $60,000 with an opportunity to increase my pay in the first year. Can you tell me if that's possible with your merit increase cycle? So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to have time here to answer your questions. So if you haven't already put them in the Q&A, go ahead. And in the meantime, I want to gift you with my free Own Your Value ebook, which is a companion to my session today. It's a piece of the puzzle to my bigger HR negotiation guide. But if you would love to access this free gift, I am gifting it to you. Head over to the website. Thank you, Megan, for putting it here in the chat. If you share your email, you'll get the guide to download. And then you'll be, of course, in my network. We can continue chatting. I want to hear from you. I want to answer your questions. And I have tons of resources available for you to prepare for your asks, including the specific scripts in my bigger guide, which if you download this free one, you'll have an opportunity to get my guide at a discount. So that is my gift to you today. I'm so excited that you joined me live. Thank yourselves. There was like 65, 70 folks here today. Thank you for showing up for you today, because that is the first step in owning your worth. And I am so thrilled that you joined today, that you're taking this time, and connect with me, please, 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 please. I really want to hear from you. I want to know your questions. I want to celebrate you. I love to hear from you when you ask, and feel that thrill of knowing that you've spoke up for yourself. So thank you so much. And let's turn it over to questions. Thank you everybody for joining. I hope you can stay for the Q&A. And if not, I hope to see you on LinkedIn. Thank you all for sharing. I know this is a big topic, so I appreciate your willingness and vulnerability. So cheers to you and owning your worth. And Jen, go ahead and let's do some questions.
Sure. So the first question is, what tips do you have when the job posting doesn't have a salary posted? Is it worth applying if you have no idea about the salary range?
Yes. So if it's a job description that you're interested in, if you're interested in that company or that role, then definitely apply. Don't put any information, or I like to put $1 million in my desired salary, or a bunch of zeros if the system is asking you to put that. But if you don't know, you can ask when you start interviewing. You can say, I didn't see a salary range posted on your job posting. I am looking for, $90,000 to $110,000 based on my experience. Is that within your budget?
Okay. So the next question is about not fitting into a typical box, I guess. It's a person who has 2 degrees and a master's and is focused mostly in engineering, but just got an MBA, is having a hard time finding compatible salaries out there. So they're asking kind of about, do they continue looking, or how could they try to convince their employer to maybe raise them up or do something different with them now that they have this MBA?
Okay, there might be a couple questions, but what I'm hearing, Jen, is that they have more education now, including an MBA, and they want either more money or a raise or to look for a new job.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So I would start with your current employer, because if you unless you know that that's not the place for you and you want to do something completely different, start where you are and practice building a case and making an ask. Sit down with your employer and say, look, I've been here for X amount of time. Here are the top 4 things that I'm really proud of. Here's how I've gone above and beyond. And I've just completed my MBA. And part of the reason I got my MBA was to be able to impact the business in this way, or to be able to grow my career in this way. And I'd love to talk to you today about that and how my additional skills and contribution reflect in my pay. Can we chat about it?
All
so
right.
Ask. Get your boss to be on your side.
The next question is from a student that says, since they are still a student, how do they even know what their worth is in the first place?
Yes. Great question. So there's plenty of data online in terms of, what a starting salary should be with somebody who has 0 to 3 years of experience. What it comes down to is getting that job offer and negotiating for more, no matter what that is. So you can find, I don't know what field you're in, you can do some research ahead of time to see what the starting salaries are for somebody in your field. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, salary.com, payscale.com, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, depending on what industry you're in, there's data out there. So get a basic understanding and just poll people. I used to reach out to folks on LinkedIn just saying, hey, I see that you have a product manager position. Are you willing to tell me your pay? I'm doing some research. Right? Why is it not okay to ask folks what they're earning? It is, it can be okay, right? So get a baseline of what you believe you should be paid for your industry in an entry-level role. And then please just negotiate. Again, ask for $5,000 more. And even if they say no, you get to hear their why. You get to determine if that's really a place that you want to invest your career. Because if a company is not going to be invested in your future, especially as you're beginning, if there's no opportunity for professional development, for training, for shadowing, for an opportunity to get a raise in 6 months or a year after you've gained some skills, then do you really want to start your career there? So please negotiate. Even if you don't know, ask for $5,000 more and see how it goes. And use that information to your benefit.
All right, the next question is there a chance if you counter offer too high for a new position, they'll walk away and go with their second choice, or will they always counter your counter?
Good question. So I'm gonna pose it back. If you are the person, if you're the employer's top choice and you negotiate and they go for their second choice, is that a place you want to work? If you are not going to be respected, taken seriously, given information because you've made an ask, to me, that is a bigger problem about the culture within the organization and how people are treated. Because if you're not able to negotiate from the beginning, that's a red flag to what your potential career growth will be with that organization moving forward. Now, I'll caveat that by saying, yes, companies, I've had 2 clients over the course of, a long time now, hundreds of clients. I've had 2 clients ask and the company rescinded their offers, and my client said, thank goodness, I wouldn't want to be a part of that organization. I've also had women tell me that when employers found out they were pregnant, they've had offers rescinded, right? That's not okay. Now, if an employer cannot meet your salary needs and goals and desires because they just don't have the budget or whatever the reason, then have that conversation. Maybe they'll have to go to their second choice, but it's not going to be any hard feelings. So negotiation is the last step in the interview process. I want you to be successful in your career. They want you to be successful. You don't want to start at a new place feeling underpaid or resentful. So if you ask and they say, forget it, whew, thank goodness.
Say goodbye.
Yeah.
The next one is if the employer says they can't meet your initial salary range, but you really, really want the job, what is the next thing you would say?
Yes. So I would tell them that, hey, employer, I really want to join. I'm disappointed you're not able to reach my desired salary. So I have some other questions. What about a bonus? What about your benefits? What about working from home? What about an opportunity to earn a sign-on bonus, right? So you want to ask about other pieces. Is there stock? Will they pay for a coach or training or a conference, right? So you can tell them, hey, employer, I really want to make this work. I want to join. I know that you have some budget constraints right now, but can I get it in writing that will readdress my pay in 6 months? Or can I get it in writing that you'll refund me, up to $5,000 for a coach this year, for a conference, for whatever it is that is important to you, maybe going back to school. So you have to get clear on what matters to you, right? If you have children, maybe flexibility, right, is more important to you than straight cash, maybe not, right? Maybe it's retirement fund. So get clear on what are your non-negotiables and ask. This is about coming to an agreement. And the more that you know, if an employer says, hey, we don't do this for anybody, that's actually a good thing because, we didn't talk about the gender pay gap today or the racial pay gap, but that does exist. So part of this process of negotiation is knowing that you're going to be treated fairly in an organization.
All right. The next question is kind of another out of the box. If you have trouble working the typical number of hours a week, maybe due to your lifestyle or children, things like that, how could you ask for a job and negotiate the salary, even though you're kind of in a unique situation there?
So my question always is, are you doing the job? Are you getting the job done? If so, how does that impact the business and what is that worth to the business? Meaning, if they're giving you the job to do, that means they value you. That means they trust you with the job. And I hope I'm answering the question here, but if you're getting the job done in a shorter, a Monday through Wednesday, longer work week, so you have the rest of the time off, if you're getting the job done, you're getting the job done. So I don't want you to think about your personal needs and experiences and restraints as a way that you're not as valuable. Instead, flip that around and say, how am I still adding value to my employer, even though I'm also dealing with childcare, dealing with X, Y, and Z. So think about it again from that business perspective. What's in it for the business to continue having you on board and paying you? So it's about advocating and articulating your value.
The next is a question about companies that have a strict pay band, like they give the range is going to be from here to there. And the benefits are within a certain level as well. Is there ever a way to navigate that or expand the pie, even though they're saying the top salary is going to be a certain amount?
Yes, but you have to ask, well, what else can I do to get paid more? Are you telling me this is it forever? What's my career growth options? How do I go above and beyond? How is that recognized in the organization? Is it really strict? You're telling me that this is the only pay I'll ever receive, right? Or this is the only thing you can do, and you're doing that across the board? Well, does that mean I won't be able to grow here? So what does it take for me, or what does it look like for me to be able to grow into this next phase? So the good thing there might be that if they're paying fairly as an organization, you know that they are strict, that no one, on your team is going to be making 40 grand more than you without you knowing it. So that's the benefit of that. But it's about understanding if that works for you. If a place is really going to say there's nothing we can do, this is what we pay and that's it, then is that the place you want to be long term? Maybe based on your situation, you have to say yes now, but remember that you can ask, you can negotiate, you can interview, you can look for an employer that's going to invest in your future and give you options.
All right, well, that was the last question. So we have answered everybody, I think. So thank you so much, Ashley. Do you have anything final you wanted to say?
Thank you everybody for joining. Again, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love for you to say hi and just say you attended my session today. And again, if you want to download my free Own Your Value gift, it's really valuable in terms of helping you to prepare for these conversations. So thank you so much for everybody. Thank you, Jen and the UNH team, for having me. It's really been a pleasure. And yeah, great questions, great engagement. Go for it. Make your ask. You are worthy inside and out, and your employer is thankful to have you. So thanks for joining today.
Thanks so much, Ashley. This was so great. Thank you so much. We will send out some follow-up emails with some of the information that's been talked about today. And we just really appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks again, Ashley.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.